Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 9 of Consultant Proficiency Resources, where we're breaking through traditional leadership style for optimum success. I'm Cheryl, managing partner and founder for CPR, and here at CPR we resuscitate one business, one leader at a time. CPR is a business ministry whereby we integrate biblical plus business principles for optimum success. So if you're new to this platform and you desire to elevate your leadership style, whether you're an educator, a corporate executive, a woman minority-owned business, a business leader, college student, or an aspiring entrepreneur, if you're in your faith walk and you desire to elevate your leadership style, this is the platform for you. We encourage you that you hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so you will be advised of all future uploads. And if you are the faithful followers, you're with us since the debut of our pilot series in December 2022. We thank you for hanging around. Thank you for doing the work. As we say, faith without works is dead, according to James 2:26. So be sure you do the work. Your decision to improve and to be better and to invest in you and your team starts with a single tiny seed, and we commend you for doing the work. And having said that, we want to say welcome to episode 11, and the focus is on attitude and valuing you and members of your team based on attitude. And as the world celebrates Women's History Month, it's important that we continue to pay homage to many women leaders, and we're going to continue to look at quotes from different leaders, different industries, to see how exactly they strove within their time. And we're going to consider, once again, biblical as well as contemporary leaders. Having said that, let's consider Esther, as in Queen Esther from the book of Esther, and that can be found in the Old Testament. Queen Esther was selected from a bevy of beauties during her time when the king was in search to replace his queen, and his queen was sent away based on disobedience. Her uncle got wind of what was going on and really coached the young lady in terms of preparing her for the position. And it so happens God had favor on Queen Esther, then Esther, and she indeed was selected after her grooming. Queen Esther was very wise in that as young as she was, she inclined her ear to wisdom. According to Proverbs 2:2, it is important to incline your ear to wisdom, and that wisdom came not only in prayer and worship, but from her elder uncle. She listened to him because she knew indeed he was a wise person. And it's with that listening and praying and fasting, she was able to liberate her people. Hence the reason many today celebrate the culture of Purim. And you might have heard of the Feast of Purim. It is indeed a cultural holiday, but it's in honor of that period when she stepped into her role as a queen and she possessed the moral fortitude. And she, as a woman, asked her husband, then the king, in terms of making very clear what was going on in his kingdom right under his nose, and that required a lot of strength. And as we consider contemporary women leader, we want to consider Margaret Johnson, who the world knows as Maya Angelou. Yes, her birth name, Margaret Johnson. Maya Angelou is an American author, actress, screenwriter, dancer, poet, civil rights activist, and is best known for her 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She published several books, autobiographies, poetry, and is credited with a list of plays and movies to her name. So today we want to consider a couple of quotes, and one of the quotes that she said that is most popular of all her quotes is, and I quote, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Do the best that you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And that's interesting because that tells me at some point in all our lives, we are growing and we continue to grow. And when we know better, we pivot and we improve. And then we get to learn more information. We pivot and we improve, and it goes on and on and on. And when you know better, you do better. If you elect not to do better and remain in a state of ignorance, then no, you cannot be an effective leader, nor a moral leader, and no, there's growth. There's something known as stunt growth. if you're not evolving based on the news and information that you receive, and if it's built on truth. If you choose not to evolve, then you have stunned growth, and you also lack emotional intelligence. Now, on a contemporary side, looking at Maya Angelou, known as Margaret Johnson, we may also consider a second quote, and actually we're going to focus on the second quote, not the most famous of her quotes. And the second quote I'd like to put a spotlight on, and that's the premise of today's moral leadership coaching tidbit. She says, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. I love it. I love it. If you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. And that quote reminds me of the man in the mirror. You have to start within. So if you don't like a situation and you've done everything you can that you cannot change it, then change your perspective of whatever it is you don't like, right? We must start with ourselves. We must start within, regardless of the situation, and look at it from a different perspective. And if you're a natural born pessimist, then you may have a more objective and optimistic version to consider. So on a non-toxic Tuesday, what CPR has done, we either do videos or we do blog posts in terms of cultivating and fostering a healthy, positive, creative work environment. And we highlight the negative, or sometimes we also promote the positive. So on this non-toxic Tuesday, according to Indeed magazine, they listed 17 signs of a poor attitude. And it's that poor attitude that we want to bring to the forefront. On this video blog, we want to present you with 5 out of the 17 poor attitudes. Poor attitudes is what's going to be your breaker. It's what's going to take you down if you don't change your attitude. And again, going back to Maya Angelou's original quote, when you know better, you do better. And that's the whole goal of living and striving. Being able to see what's in front of you and learning and growing as a result. Life does not evolve around one person, right? It takes an entire team, it does take an entire village, and it's important to highlight that. So what I did was highlighted 5 out of the 17, and we recommend that you go to the post that listed all 17 with the explanation. It's certainly a worthy read if you have concerns or individuals have expressed concern about your attitude. So let's consider the first one. You expect others to respect you before you show them respect. That's number 1. So not only that, but you don't feel respected unless other people do exactly what you say. That's a problem. So if the other person doesn't obey or indulge your habits for whatever reason, you see no reason to respect them. And that's really a puerile, sophomoric way of growing and developing. Now, there are excuses if you're below the age of 18. We can make an excuse for your puerility. However, once you've decided you're 21 and older, you're indeed accountable. And every decision you make, you are responsible for, right? You're responsible for your decision because you elect to have a poor attitude or a positive attitude. The next one is number 2. It says you misinterpret everything others do and say. So no one can do right by you. You are always the victim. And every little thing they do really sets you off. So you're taking time bomb and you find people walking eggshells. Some people actually enjoy people walking in eggshells around them. That's toxic in and of itself. And if it's not addressed, then that can really lead to a downward spiral in a negative way. Then we consider number 3, you're carrying a grudge against someone. You have a sense of righteous grudge, and you try to equate that to righteous indignation, which is biblical. A righteous grudge is not biblical. And that's what you tell yourself though. So you're convinced that letting go of that grudge will let the other person win. But the only person your grudge is hurting is you. So release that. Number 4, you're expecting bad things to happen to you. You're a pessimist. You see the glass half full all the time, or half empty all the time, not half full. An optimist sees it half full, which I am, and a pessimist sees it half empty. So you have a kind of doom and gloom type of mentality. And as a leader, you take your entire team with you. Nothing ever goes the way you want it. So why wouldn't you have a bad attitude, right? In your eyes, your life is a cruel joke. So where are you leading and who are you leading if that's the case? And then you have number 5, deep down, you honestly believe you're superior to others. We have a lot of young people, Generation Next, walking around with one degree or no degrees, and they have a sense of entitlement, and they have a superiority complex based on nothing, without living, without gaining wisdom and understanding, and without knowing right or wrong. They just believe what they believe, and it's a false sense of confidence that they gave themselves. And then we have others who are baby boomers and of other generations who have lived, and because of that, they have a sense of, I know what's right for you all the time, and there's a sense of superiority as well. So it goes to both generations. We need to consider who we are, and we need to understand exactly what happens when we take it upon ourselves and we have a sense of superiority complex. You could do something few others can, which is a skill, which is a gift from our Elohim, but it's nothing to thumb your nose up on anyone else. So it's important to go back to the list again. I just listed the 5 negatives, the poor attitudes, and I put a little bit of a spin on it based on the articles, but then look at it in terms of a biblical perspective and how we could change things. So again, this is part of self-reflecting. Self-reflecting allows you to build self-awareness. When you're self-aware, you are able to do a self-check, and when you do a self-check, you're able to self-correct. And when you're able to self-correct, you are now holding yourself accountable. And you can look at the man and the woman in the mirror and say, yes, you can. Okay, so let's go through this checklist again, now doing a positive spin on it. Number 1, you expect others to respect you before you show them respect. The recommendation here from CPR is consider the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22 and 23. And none of the fruits of the Spirit, including love, joy, peace, long-suffering, temperance, which is self-control, and long-suffering, which is patience, and meekness, involves not respecting anyone else. So we would recommend that you begin to look at what corrupt fruits allow you to have a sense of disrespecting others or wanting people to do what you want to do, period, and disregarding them. Self-respect is a two-way street, as they say on the street. That's street talk. Two-way street. That's respect. And many a times you may also want to consider you don't respect others because there's something lacking inside. There's an empty tank, and you have to fill it up with love and joy and peace, the fruits of the Spirit. And because your tank is empty, you take that to others. And we on the receiving end, because your tank is empty, it's all dried up, there's nothing much more to give, including to yourself. So you have to start with a level of self-love, and then comes self-respect. So do the self-check, do the self-reflection, build that self-awareness and know exactly where you stand. And what you want to do is to stamp out the corrupt fruits, replace it with the fruits of the Spirit found in Galatians 5:22 and 23. Then we want to look at, interpret everything others do and say. The scripture for that, I will just say Ephesians 4:31. We will say, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. So the bottom line underlining here is that malice and bitterness. If you put that away, you will not really misinterpret what someone is saying. And it's also important to understand the Elohim that we serve. His characteristics is cited in Psalms 145:8, which is gracious, you show compassion, you slow to anger, and plenteous to mercy. So if the goal is to mirror and model the characteristics of our Elohim, then you want to consider being gracious to your team and your partners and everyone that surrounds you, showing compassion, showing sympathy, displaying empathy. And it's not all about you when you want it, where you want it. Also slow to anger, that means allowing your tongue to stay in place and speak only when it's to edify members of your team. And then we consider plenteous to mercy. Always be merciful as our Elohim is to us. Let's consider you're carrying a grudge. That's the third one, against someone. And the script for that is Ephesians 4:32. I would say it's important to really to be kind and right. Even if you're right as a boss, be kind first. You could correct that employee afterwards. So release that grudge. Release that grudge. My apologies. Release that grudge. Be kind, even if it means even if you're right, be kind first, and then you're able to proceed with correcting and edifying that person. But Ephesians 4:32 tells us, and be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, had forgiven you. And that's beautifully stated. Then we go to number 4. You're expecting bad things to happen. You are pessimist. And Romans 12:12 tells us and reminds us we must be hopeful and we must rejoice in hope. So it says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer. Romans 12 says, rejoicing in hope. You must be hopeful, you must be patient, and you must continue to consume the word and be in a status of prayer, being prostrating yourself to your Creator at all times. Then number 5, that's superiority complex. I would look at Romans 12:16. Be not wise in your own conceits. Be not wise in your own conceits, right? It's all vanity. It's all vanity. Be not be wise in your own conceits. And then in understanding that, then you want to go to Ephesians 4:23. And it says, and you want to renew your mind. So if you think you're better than everyone else, and if you think you're higher than everyone else, we know the scripture tells us that the only person that desires to go all the way up, return to heaven, is the dark one himself, Satan himself, right? And understanding who you are, you cannot be greater than the Creator. You're the creation. So it's about renewing the spirit of your mind. If you renew in the spirit of your mind, you'll begin to see that, yeah, God is love and He created everyone. We all have value and we all have different gifts. And because we all have different gifts, we need to cherish that. We need to be kind-hearted. And in the world of business, that means bringing on a very equally yoked team with diverse skill sets, that when we work together, we can get a job done and have optimum success. And that's the important thing, having optimum success. So as leaders, we have options. We can ignore the signs and proceed as usual, or tackle this issue head on. And even as women leaders, as she bosses, we have that supposedly proverbial glass ceiling. And while my goal is not necessarily to crack that glass ceiling or not, but to be the helpmate in whichever way I can while we're on this walk, it's important to understand while I am the manager and founder of my company and other divisions that we're going to continue to move and strive for, I do still understand my role. And it's important that in the workplace, in business, we continue that journey. We take that faith walk. We take that renewing of the mind with us, whether it's in business, boardroom, or the playroom, whether we're having fun with the family. So again, if you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. It's about perspective, family. It's about perspective. So remember, your attitude, not your aptitude, will render your altitude. Whether you have a negative or positive attitude does make a difference. And even if you have a degree from Harvard or 50 degrees or a doctorate, it doesn't matter if you have a negative, bad, poor attitude. That's not what's going to give you the altitude to soar. In today's 21st century business, you need a team. A negative, poor attitude is not going to cut it in 21st century. You need a team that's going to bat for you. And to do so, you need to be a moral, ethical leader that supports your team, that values your team, that respects your team, and that understands that we each have something to contribute in the workspace. And having said that, that concludes episode 11, when we consider the value of you and we consider a negative attitude versus a poor attitude. And as a reminder, your attitude, not your aptitude, dictates your altitude. We're going to close out with 1 Corinthians 12, and we're going to do verses 4, 5, and 6, telling us about the various gifts. And even though it's spiritual gifts, we can still link it to the skills that was bestowed upon us from our Creator. And let us go 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 says, "Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit." We all have different gifts. "And there are differences of administrations, but the same God. And there are diversities of operations, but it is the same God which worketh all in all." One God. One God. Right? One Elohim. But in terms of the creation, we have different gifts, we have different administrations, and as a result of that, there's diversities of operations. We're one body, and within one body, we have different parts, different gifts, different skill sets, where work and pray together, we can get the job done. Family, we just concluded episode 11 of Consultant Proficiency Resources, More Leadership Coaching, TidBit. If you have not hit that subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. Of course, be sure to support small businesses. Please be sure also to like and share with a friend. We look forward to seeing you in episode 12 of Consultant Proficiency Resources, More Leadership Coaching, TidBit. Thank you for watching.